Hey folks, Dylan Bressie here from Grand Prairie City Council. I often see a lot of confusion about how property taxes work, so I've made a series of videos. In this video, we're going to look at some examples of how changing assessment values impact the tax bills properties receive. But first, a quick summary of the last two videos. Property taxes exist to serve residents, businesses, and community organizations. Taxes help pay for all the municipal services they receive. In my first video, I showed how the city takes the cost of these services, subtracts other revenue sources, and adds in provincial property taxes to create a total tax requisition. In my second video, I showed how the city values properties to calculate the city's total assessment base. The tax requisition is divided by the assessment base to get a tax rate, which is then applied to each property to calculate its tax bill. That's a lot to cram into 30 seconds. I'd really encourage you to go and watch my last two videos. We've also been visiting Tinytown. It is 5 houses and a community hall. Tinytown needs $13,000 in tax revenue to deliver its services. The province also requires it to collect $4,000 in provincial property taxes, so it has a total tax requisition of $17,000. When the value of all the houses in Tinytown are added together, we see that it has an assessment base of $170 million. That gives Tinytown a tax rate of 0.01. So most houses have tax bills of $3,000, while the more expensive ones owe $4,000. But what's an average tax bill in Tinytown? To get an average, we take the tax requisition of $17,000 and divide that by the number of houses, 5. The average house is paying $3,400 in taxes. But what happens to these tax bills next year when Council sets a new budget? As Council sets its budget, the number changing is this number: how much money is needed from taxes to deliver municipal services. But as it sets this number, Council also keeps an eye on the tax impacts to residents and businesses. To do that, it looks at the average tax bill. When you hear Council say the budget will have tax impacts of a certain percent, what they mean is this is how much change an average tax bill will see. And here is where people often get confused. They'll say, but our actual change will be bigger because our assessment will change. But that's not really how things work. Let's look at Tinytown's next budget year. Here, I've left all the numbers from last year in blue so you can keep seeing them. In the following year, Tinytown becomes a tourism hotspot, so all its home values go up by 10%. Does that mean everyone's taxes go up? No, because remember, Council sets a budget before homes are even assessed. And this year, Tinytown Council sees many costs go up due to inflation and more people in town, but also finds some savings, so it manages to keep its tax requisition at $17,000. The new assessment base is up 10% to $1,870,000. This gives a tax rate of 0.009. Despite their value going up, when this is applied to the smaller houses, they still see $3,000 in taxes, and big ones still see $4,000. Despite values going up, each house still pays the same amount of taxes as they did before. That means that when we calculate the average tax bill, it is still $3,400. The change in assessment doesn't impact the taxes. However, the real world isn't this neat and tidy. In reality, people's assessments change at different rates, and this can lead to tax increases for some due to tax decreases for others. Let's look at one last example. Going back to our original assessments, what if, instead of all properties going up by 10%, they go up by different amounts? In this example, Council still keeps the tax requisition of $17,000. This allows it to have a 0% change to the average homeowner, but few people will be bang on the average. Weird things start happening in the real estate market. The rich and famous have heard about the great, quaint little community barbecues in Tinytown. They start buying in, so big houses go up by 20%. Small houses also see a bump, but a smaller one. They just go up by 10%. If you add the value of all these houses together, the assessment base is now $1,950,000. That means Tinytown now needs a tax rate of 0.0087. If you apply this to the big houses, you see that their taxes are now $4,185. Their taxes did indeed go up. But check out what happens to smaller houses. The new tax rate gives them a new tax bill of $2,877. Despite their assessments going up, their taxes go down. Let's look at the average tax bill of Tinytown. If you add up all 5 tax bills, you still have $17,000 in taxes being collected, and you still have 5 houses. The average tax bill is still $3,400. So, some homeowners paid more, but this is balanced out by others paying less. The average homeowner still pays $3,400. Assessments changing don't impact what the average tax bill is, and they don't mean the municipality collects more taxes. However, they do impact what portion of those taxes are paid by each property. Leaving Tinytown behind, let's also take a quick look at what this looks like in the real world. Here's how taxes in Grande Prairie changed in 2019. Along the bottom of this graph, we have a bunch of ranges that represent the percentage change a property saw on its taxes. Along the side, we have how many residential properties fall into each range. So this bar right here, it tells you that approximately 500 properties saw their taxes go down by 8 to 9%. Now here is a fuller graph with every house in the city on it. In 2019, Council set a budget that lowered the municipal taxes on an average house by 4.1%, which is about here on the graph. About 6,500 houses had their taxes go down by pretty close to 4.1%, and a number saw their taxes go down by more than 4.1%. However, some also saw their taxes go down by less than 4.1%, and some unfortunate properties even saw their taxes increase. That happens because their house values increased more than an average house value increased, which is super frustrating to many. They don't like the system, where an average tax rate change is known, but it shakes out differently for everyone. They think the council should implement a system where everyone sees the exact same percentage change. And a system like that would make a lot more sense than what we've got right now. But again, I'd point out, provincial legislation and regulation is what determines how municipal taxes get set. Council is required by the province to use a system, with all of its flaws, to determine what shares of taxes each property owner will pay. I know this video was a lot more dense than my last ones. I just threw a whole bunch of numbers at you, so I appreciate you sticking it out. If you have any questions or thoughts about taxes, or anything else Council works on, I'd love to hear from you. Once again, I'm Dylan Bressie. Thanks again for listening.